Hello, Michael. Delighted to be chatting with you. Myself and Steve Evans there.
Hi, Michael.
You all right?
Yeah, good. Really good. Yeah. So, how's life in Liverpool? Even though Terry's in Liverpool. Oh, I take it you're in Liverpool, are you?
I am in Liverpool. Yeah, I'm in Chilwell. Yeah.
Oh, whereabouts, Mike?
By Hope University.
Oh, the top there by Taggart Avenue.
By Taggart Avenue, yeah, just there.
I know, yeah. We were chatting to Sarah Moorhead a few weeks ago. She lives.
Yeah.
Do you know her at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she lives about 5 minutes away.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a small
I've
world.
known Sarah for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So she's my son's school friend's mum.
Yeah.
So I got to know her through there, and I got my agent thanks to Sarah.
Liverpool Literary Agency.
Yeah, Liverpool Literary Agency. So it was Sarah who kind of connected me up with Claire Coombs.
Okay.
Small world, okay.
It is. Do you know Jack Byrne as well? I think I've asked you this.
I don't know him personally. I'm obviously with the same publisher, Orthodox Press. But,
Same agency as well.
Same agent as well. Yeah. So, but I've not actually met him. I've got his book here, which is on my huge
Under the Bridge
pile. Under the Bridge. Yeah,
it's good, excellent read.
Where is it?
So while we're talking about Sarah Moorhead, Jack Byrne, do you know Luca Vesti?
I don't. I've seen him a couple of times doing talks and readings, but I've never actually met him. I know Sarah knows him quite well.
Yeah. I've been to one or two of his talks and I've met him socially rather than to talk about books. So yeah. He's got a few books out, hasn't he? Yeah.
20.
Yeah, he's quite productive. Yeah.
We're chatting to him tomorrow, 6 o'clock.
All right, brilliant.
Mike, can I ask, besides writing, what hobbies do you have apart from looking around for libraries and not finding horror fiction?
Very few, really. I mean, I think probably photography is probably the only other hobby, and it's probably a bit grand to call it photography. It's more taking pictures, I think, is probably a more accurate description. But my dad's a keen photographer, so kind of take after him there.
I read it as well by the look of the bookshelves behind you. Great collection.
That's probably the hobby as well as the hopefully the career at some point.
Oh yeah, I see Clive Barker there behind you.
Yeah, that's the Clive Barker row up there. So they're all hardback first edition. Yeah. Big Clive Barker fan.
Yeah, there's he's from Liverpool as well, isn't he? We've got a great sort of literary.
Yeah, Clive Barker's from Liverpool, from Penny Lane, I think, or off Penny Lane.
Oh yeah,
he grew up.
Yeah, know that.
Yeah, we've got Ramsey Campbell as well. Merseyside and more than a Liverpudlian. And Peter Atkins, he's another one. He's a sort of cohort of Clive Barker's.
Oh yeah.
So it's quite a spooky city, I think.
Was that an influence on your picking as horror as your sort of genre for writing?
Yeah, I mean, Clive Barker definitely a big influence in terms of the direction of the writing. Probably the gateway into writing horror was probably Doctor Who, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably quite common to people of my age, really. So that Doctor Who, and then the sort of Fontana Book of Horror, the Armada books of horror edited by Mary Danby. Yeah, those kind of things, really. That's sort of the initial. Certainly, Doctor Who is a big. I'm not a Whovian. I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, but as a kid, those sort of scary Tom Baker episodes.
Yeah, I used to have a huge collection of. I remember back in the 70s, 80s, there was the Pan Book of Horror, a collection of short stories, and that went on for like about 10 years, I think. New season about short story horror writers. Yeah,
that's again another big influence, really. So the Armada books were kind of the children's version of the Pan Books of Horror, and the Pan Books of Horror were quite. Looking back at them now, they're quite extreme. There's some quite shocking stories in there, and they were, generally speaking, they were kind of shelved with the children's books as well. I remember you could pick up a Mary Danby edited Armada Book of Horror, and then next to it would be Robert Aikman edited Pan Book of Horror. So they were all just kind of mixed together. The librarians didn't really sort of quite know what they were exposing us to. I don't think. But I got Salem's Lot out of Wavertree Library when I was 11. Yeah. So just walked up to the counter and took it home.
Do you know, just coincidentally, I've got a background in librarianship. I took my daughter into Wavertree Library and she wanted a selection of horror books. And the librarian said, "Sorry, no, you're too young." And I said, "Hang on a second, that's my daughter. I'm a librarian. I know a little bit about books." If she wants to choose that for reading and I allow her to, it's my decision, not yours. So a little bit of a debate in there.
Yeah, my parents weren't that understanding. I had to kind of sneak them into the house and hide them under my bed.
It's not as if there's an age, is there, with horror stories, or is it just guidance? It's a bit like the film world, or there isn't anything in for books, is there?
No, there's no sort of not really in terms. Yeah, you basically read the blurb on the back and see if it's for you, kind of thing. Usually, if it's going to be extreme, you tend to know, and the covers are a bit of a giveaway sometimes.
True. Yeah. You've written a lot of short stories as well, haven't you? Did you find that form of writing, you've got to condense it down, haven't you? You can't linger on and all that. Did you find that was a good discipline to get into writing full length as well, or was it totally different?
Yeah, I think that's quite often people sort of say they're very different approaches, but I don't. To be honest, it's just telling a story. I tend to write in quite a concise way anyway, so I'm not one for huge kind of rambling description. So writing a novel was just, it was very similar to writing a short story. There were just more scenes, really. So I don't think I took a different approach. But I haven't written short stories for quite a while. I think
right, okay.
Been a few years since I've written a short.
Can I ask? We'll talk about your novel. We'll focus on that, on Hyenas. But before that, can you just tell us how you connected with Unorthodox? Was that through the agency?
Yeah.
What came first? Was it the book first, and then you said, "Here's my book. I need representation. Can you find a publisher?" How did that work for you?
Well, I'd written Hyenas, or published Hyenas, in about 2015. I'd self-published.
Yeah.
So I kind of already had that, and it sold a modest number of copies. And when Sarah put me in touch with Claire, I didn't have a manuscript to tout. So I just thought, well, I'll just package up Hyenas as a manuscript, because it's complete. So so the book had been written quite a few years before, and then went through various edits with Claire, and then Claire sold it to Unorthodox, and it went through a few more edits from their angle as well. So it's kind of a new, improved version of the self-published book.
Yeah. What did you get, like a 2-book deal, or was just like a single, just as it comes type of thing?
Yeah, just see how it goes deal, basically.
Yeah. So did you find a major problem contacting it or getting in touch with a publisher and getting them to use your work, or because you obviously went self-published to start with, which is probably sometimes an easier route to go through, isn't it? Or did they find you, or did you find them, or did you have to keep pushing them?
Yeah, it's strange, because I wasn't really trying to get published traditionally. I was self-publishing, and I was quite comfortable, quite happy with self-publishing. And then I met Sarah Moorhead, and Sarah's quite a strong character. So she once she sort of said, "Oh, you want to get yourself," she'd read Hyenas and enjoyed it. So she said, "You want to get this traditionally published." So she was kind of the force behind me even bothering, to be honest, to try and get a traditional deal. I'm glad I have, but it wasn't something I was actively seeking out. So that's down to Sarah, really. She's she kind of bullied me into it.
Sarah's put us in touch with a couple of other writers as well. We spoke to Trevor Wood a couple of days ago. Okay. Luca as well. But so she seems to be like the middle of a hub, Sarah.
She's sort of becoming quite a big figure certainly in the Liverpool writing community. She's very supportive of people, very encouraging.
Okay.
Yeah, as I say, I wouldn't.
Go on.
I don't think I'd got my deal without Sarah, because partly because I wasn't actively seeking one, but it wasn't. She kind of gave me that confidence to go for it, because I wasn't sure whether Hyenas was good enough, really. I'm always surprised at the positive reaction to Hyenas, because it was a book that was written quite quickly and almost done as a fun exercise, really. I just really wanted to write an apocalyptic siege novel, so something a bit like Night of the Living Dead. But, so it was, it was one of those. And self-publishing, you can be a little bit more self-indulgent, and just write what you want and put it out there. So I was never really 100% sure whether it was traditionally publishable material.
You mentioned the word fun. I started reading it today, Hyenas, and I think it's absolutely brilliant beginning. It's a horror genre, and this something's happened called Jay calls it the jolt.
Yeah.
But even though it's a horror genre, you got Jay sort of living in Waterstone's shop, hiding from these creatures. There's an element of humour there as well. I found was that intentional? A lightness in there, not quite comedy, but you got the horror.
It's not intentional in the sense of going out of my way to make it funny, but it is because it's Liverpool. It's Liverpudlian characters. It just naturally comes out. So
black
a lot
humor.
of the humor, and a lot of the humor is the back and forth between the characters. So there's no real sort of slapstick humor in there, but there's a lot of it's more banter, I suppose, than anything else. But that just sort of. In fact, I was quite surprised that when a few reviews came back, they sort of talked, quite prominently about the humor, and it wasn't something I thought that was that. Sort of on the surface, I thought there were a few humorous quips here and there.
Yeah.
But more and more people are sort of mentioning the humor elements of it.
I was laughing about the Dempsey, the Dublin character.
Oh yeah.
He's saying they want to get a sailing boat going because someone's take Sergeant Pepper. He's barricading Liverpool and barricading Penny Lane.
Yeah, he's basically scuttled all of the boat. So the only real way out of Liverpool in this kind of apocalyptic scenario, because the roads are all completely congested and you don't want to be sort of walking across fields at night on your own. So the river is obviously the sort of arterial route out of the city. So this Sergeant Pepper character, he's scuttled all of the boats and made all of the ships unusable just to keep everybody in. Liverpool.
That's funny, I think.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Was it a deliberate ploy? Was it a promotional thing that you set it in Waterstones at the opening page? Is that an angle for Waterstones, to stock tons of your books?
Yeah, well, it's set in what was my favourite Waterstones, which was the one at the bottom of Bold Street.
I know, yeah.
So it's sadly gone now. It's in fact there used to be one halfway up. There used to be a massive Waterstones halfway up Bold Street.
Yeah.
And that was the first to close.
Yeah.
But so that one's not there anymore. Similarly with the library, the library it's set in is the library before all of the refurbishment work was done.
Central Library.
Yeah, Central Library. So it's the library before it was completely sort of knocked down and rebuilt.
Well, I went there about 10 years ago, and I worked in that place about 30 years ago. But when I walked in, I hadn't realised it'd been modernised. And I was like, what's gone on here? This massive staircase thing, as soon as you walk in, it just looked like a totally different building. It becomes sort of, someone will pull the switch and made it modern.
Yeah. I mean, it's great, but sometimes it doesn't really feel like a library now. I think you have to go, if you go into the Picton reading room, it's, that's obviously that's been retained. But everything else has been, other than the facade.
It's like a big bookshop, isn't it? It is like a modern Waterstones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was kind of, because when I started writing Hyenas, the plans had just been put in place for the refurbishment. So I knew that the library was going, basically, that it wasn't going to be the same library anymore. And they had like a little model in the foyer of the library to show what it was going to look like. And to be honest, I wasn't that impressed. It was kind of depressing seeing what it was going to become from what it was. But I've kind of got used to it now, but at the time it was like, I liked it. It used to have all these little cubby holes and nooks and crannies, and it was a really old kind of Victorian style structure. So it's a shame, but at the same time, the new facility is brilliant. But a lot of that character's gone really. And I don't think I could have set it in the new library because it's just open plan. There's not really there's nowhere to hide. It'd be over very quickly if it had been set there.
Yeah. So that Hyenas has been published recently, hasn't it? It's only a few months now, is it? Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, I think May, I think it was.
Yeah, right. Okay. So are you started writing another book? Have you got a follow-on or a separate novel altogether or another genre, or are you sticking with what you...
I'm sticking with horror. That horror's kind of my thing. I mean, I don't read exclusively horror, so I do read, but probably about 60-70% of what I read is horror. So the next one's, it's probably more horror than Hyenas, to be honest. It's a bit more gruesome. So that's the working title for that. Working title's Choking Hazards, but whether that's going to stick or not, I don't know.
Have you done much on it then, or is
yeah,
very early days?
No, just doing the final edits on it now before I get
Right.
get it off to my agent, so get off to Claire. Yeah, and it is just I'd found a bit of a plot hole which I've managed to fill in, and now it's just tightening it up, really, just getting rid of some of the unnecessary waffle and making it a little bit tighter.
So when's that hoping to be released? Back end of the year?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's traditional publishing it's a slow process, so I would have thought, depending how quickly, if it gets sold at all, but if it does get sold, then it could be, another year before it sees the light of day. So probably looking at 2023, I would have thought.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. That's one of the disadvantages, isn't it? I know that the advantages outweigh them, I think, but with self-publishing, you can publish when you want, you can edit when you want, you can set the price, you can give it away free if you want, as an inducement to your new novels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, self-publishing, the advantage is the sheer speed of it.
Yeah.
So you can turn it around quite quickly. But the problem is what you do gets lost there's a huge market of
6 million.
It's ludicrous. So trying to get yours to kind of float to the top or anywhere near the top is a huge challenge. Whereas when you've got the traditional publishing route, you've got people supporting you, promoting and networking and trying to get film deals and all this kind of thing.
So based on the fact that one's gone to editing now, then are you probably writing another book as well, are you?
Yeah, the next one's kind of sort of roughly plotted out. I'm a plotter, not you have these plotters and pantsers, the two kind of categories. Then I can't do pantsing at all. I tried about 2 or 3 years ago. I wrote a book and I thought everyone seems to be recommending pantsing and discovery writing, and I thought I'll give that a whirl. That sounds brilliant. And it was just a nightmare. It was absolutely terrible. So I've got a book that lives in a drawer now and it's never coming out. It's just a complete mess.
One of the writers I spoke to, Jennifer Irwin, book Address the Colour of Sky. She told me that her advice to writers is get out the vomit draft, which just throw everything out, get it out there just so that you've got the word count. And then the work starts then on the first edit.
Yeah. Well, that was the plan with that particular book, was just write what comes into your head as it comes into your head.
Yeah.
And it's beyond, it can't be edited into shape. It's just it's a complete mess.
Yeah.
But so I'm much more comfortable plotting. I don't plot in any detail. Yeah. It's usually just almost like a couple of pages of outlining, really, just to sort of see where the beginning, the middle, and the end, and any kind of major set pieces.
Yeah, bullet points.
Just get it. Yeah, that's all it is, really. Just so that I've got something. And once I've written that, I don't tend to go back to it. I'll sort of write it, and that's maybe if I get a little bit stuck, I'll go back to it. But more often than not, it's once writing it down kind of puts it in my head then.
Yeah.
And then it's just a case of getting on with the writing.
Do you always know which direction it's going in, where it's going to end, or do you plot different plots throughout the book and then come up with an end, or do you get the end first? Or
I usually have the end, but more often than not, the ending that I've plotted doesn't end up being the ending of the book. So Hyenas was plotted. In fact, Hyenas was plotted chapter by chapter, so I kind of knew what was happening in each chapter. But by the time I got to the end, there was this whole bit involving a helicopter that I won't go into, and I just thought it's just going to complicate the whole thing. So I dropped probably 3 or 4 chapters and changed a few other bits and pieces en route, just to so that I was no longer heading toward this particular plot point. But I find that it's just I write much more confidently, knowing that I know exactly what I'm aiming for. And so it's just pantsing is just beyond me. It's not. I think it's a mindset thing as much as anything else.
Do you allow your characters to sort of come alive organically? Moving away from the plot description that you had in mind.
Yeah, to a certain extent. But I kind of, once I kind of plotted it out, I'll probably leave about 2 or 3 weeks where I'll just walk around and just have the characters and situations just playing around in my head, really. So I'll go for a walk and I'll just sort of almost like, shoot scenes from the book in my head and see how they work out. So by the time I actually come to doing the actual mechanical writing side of things, I'm pretty au fait with the characters and how they're going to develop and that kind of thing. And it don't tend to not been taken too much by surprise. The good guy's still the good guy and the bad guys. With like Panthers, I know I've read interviews with Panthers and they've sort of, the good guy suddenly becomes the bad guy, just because that's the way the story suddenly, turns. I think I'd be petrified if that happened. I wouldn't know what I was doing.
Have you got any ambitions as a writer to go further with, well, perhaps your books going into a series on TV or any TV rights?
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. Yeah, definitely. It'd be if I'd like if it was to be made into a TV series or a film, I'd like it to be someone who didn't have much respect for the source material. I'd much rather someone just did their own thing with it and took the basic premise and kind of did their own thing rather than try and do follow it beat for beat. And I think it'd be interesting to see what somebody completely like. Does it have to be set in Liverpool? Obviously the book is very Liverpool infused, but it could be set in Detroit, and it could be, instead of the Beatles, it could be Motown. There's any number of like different takes on the same. I think the only thing that's central to the book and has to be there is from a plot point of view, is the fact that people lose the ability to speak and read and become the hyenas of the book's title. That's probably the thing that's at the core of it. And I think that if you change that, you'd have a different book entirely.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Michael, earlier you mentioned Salem's Lot. Are you a fan of horror films as well as fiction?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think again, from about the age of 11 was kind of where I really got into horror. So up until that point, I'd kind of been into horror, but it was more junior horror. And 11 was when I read Salem's Lot and saw. Have you seen a film called Phantasm?
It rings a bell. I can't remember it.
Yeah, it's a 1979 horror film. Yeah, and I think it came out. I saw it on video in this country in 1981, I think it was. Yeah, and that was the first modern horror film I'd seen. So up until that point, it had all been like Hammer horror or Universal. So it was all Frankenstein and Dracula and that kind of thing. Yeah, that was the first modern, contemporary horror film. Yeah, and it's one of my favorites even now. It's so inventive, such a great film. But I saw that in remember the Labour Club on Picton Road, just past. I think there's a Roofers there now. Past the bridges. There used to be the Labour Club. Yeah, the guy I used to hang around with in school. His dad was
next to the railway line, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so his dad was sort of very involved in the Labour movement. So after school, we'd both go down to the Labour Club to meet his dad, and his dad would take about a few pints and take. Well, we wouldn't have a few pints, but his dad would, and he'd take his son home. But they had it was just in the early days of video, so they had like a wall-mounted television and a video recorder, and they used to have films on. So I remember over a period of about 3 months or so, Watership Down, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and Phantasm, which is just completely inappropriate for an 11-year-old. But it was weird because it was in this Labour Club. It was just surrounded by cigarette smoke and people arguing about politics and people playing snooker. But I was completely sat on this plastic chair, just completely transfixed by this film. So I think that was the point. I can't remember whether Salem's Lot came first, but it was very much around the same time.
That scene where the vampires floating up by the window, knocking on the window.
Yeah,
that is still scary.
It is, yeah. But the film adaptation holds up really well. So, and the book in particular. I mean, it's the only book that horror book I've ever had nightmares about.
Oh yeah.
So I read, but the weird thing was, it wasn't the content of the book. I had nightmares that the librarian was coming to get me because it was an adult book and I had taken it out of the library with a children's ticket.
What, a Catholic guild was this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of thing. But I just used to have like plagued by these librarian nightmares.
Do you know one of the things that stays in my mind is going back years ago in 1974, I watched The Exorcist queued up around the block to watch that. And there was priests in the queue and St. John's ambulance people there ready to catch them when you faint. But that memory of watching The Exorcist, it still puts the shit up me now, to be honest, from so long ago.
Because I didn't see The Exorcist for probably about, I think I was about 17, because it was, you just couldn't get it on.
It was banned, wasn't it?
It was effectively banned, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're just getting to see it. I remember sort of getting halfway through, or not even halfway through, a really terrible pirate version of it, which was just shaky and grainy. So and that's still a powerful horror film.
Do you know what made it worse as well? I think at the time it was cut out in later editions, but there was subliminal images on that. So like you're watching it and, it's not registering, but it's registering subconsciously, like a flashed up image of a demon just staring at the screen, staring at the audience. Whoa, what the hell's going on there?
Yeah, it's strange because I think now, because we're sort of, DVD and Blu-ray and streaming and all that sort of thing, those kind of ththings are, people see them and pause them.
Yeah.
But if you're watching that in the 1970s in a cinema, and you'd be questioning whether you'd seen it at all, it was there and gone, wasn't it?
Well, there's no CGI. It was all mechanical, like the thing, like the bed bouncing up and down. They had like a hydraulic jack underneath the bed bouncing it, and they made the room so cold as the breath as it's coming out. It really is cold air coming out of them.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it'd be CGI now. But
yeah.
I remember reading that William Friedkin he hid guns all around the set.
What?
And if he wanted to create a scare, like a jump scare, he just basically shoot off one of these guns at random. So quite often when you see people reacting with shock, that's why.
Bloody hell! I never knew that. Yeah, I can imagine that now. One final question, if you don't mind, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
What advice would you give for new writers, someone who's thinking about getting pen to paper?
I don't know if I could give any advice about the writing itself, but in terms of the publishing side, I would definitely advise looking at self-publishing as a way of starting, kind of just putting something out there, getting an independent reaction to it, and just sort of building up a modest readership. It'll definitely help if you are looking for a traditional deal. But even the thing with self-publishing is that you're not limited to sort of novels, or you could write a novella or a novelette, and through the likes of Amazon you can put them out. So you could try shopping around a novel, but in the meantime just self-publish a novelette or a novella, and just get something out there, do a bit of social media work, and just try to, as I say, build up a little bit of a readership and become part of the community. It's a very supportive community, the sort of the horror fiction community in particular.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice. Well, listen, let's keep in touch as we have been doing on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and let's say thanks again and cheers for now.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.